expensive there too?
Oh, it's horrendous. Yeah. And a lot of, like, when you drive down the street, you know, it used to be like fields of grassy lawns where everybody had these massive grassy lawns, big, vibrant green lawns. Now everybody's ripping those out. They're either putting in artificial lawns, which is, you know, overpriced astroturf, or they're going to these, you know, zero energy or zero water or low water native plant kind of gardens in front of their houses.
Yeah, I know. When I went to my daughter's house, you know, I looked it up and I walked, you know, I was walking up to, you know, from the driveway, and I noticed they didn't have no grass. It was all gone. And, you know,
yeah, you get rid of it.
Backyard was all just dirt. And she goes, well, hey, we can't plant grass. It'll die.
Yeah, well, because you can't water it.
Yeah.
But what all that is that there's a bigger picture here, that something's going on, and they've planned for it, and that's where you get this secret space program, that they've decided that this stuff is happening and that they're going to do something about it. And their version of doing something about it is say, well, you know, we're going to take all the important people, whatever kind of litmus test they have for that, we're going to get everything ready so we can ship them somewhere else.
Well, I tell you, Mars won't be a place for it, because you know what? We've never even gone to the moon and set up any, you know, places to try surviving on the moon for any period of time, let alone, you know.
I'd argue we have.
Well, we probably have, we probably have, but, you know, government-wise, we haven't. And, you know, that, you know, it scares me, you know, from, you know, a while back, you know, it was a news release, you know, there was like a group of scientists, and they were saying how they can, you know, make Mars livable. And one of them, and I'm just going by my memory, one of them said, well, we can nuke the ice caps. Okay. Right. And then there was another group of scientists that says you can't do that because that will irradiate the water and it won't be, you know, palatable to use. Then there was another group of scientists, guys, don't you realize the atmosphere is so thin on Mars, you know, you nuke it'll evaporate. It'll be gone. It'll go out in space.
Right. Well, I would argue to you that we have bases there. And even in the late 50s and the early 60s, there were three main plans. There were two American plans and a Russian plan, Soviet plan. I guess I should make that distinction. There was Horizon, Lunex, and Zvezda. And Horizon was the Army, and they basically wanted to build underground Quonset huts and pressurize them. Lunex was the Air Force. They wanted to build bases that were actually movable. I mean, it's the Air Force, right?
Oh, yeah.
Airplanes.
Yeah.
And then the Soviets had one called Zvezda, where they wanted to build something more like Horizon. And, you know, I was on a show maybe a year ago, and this I think it was a caller called in and said that he had a relative who was an accountant at like a steel manufacturing company, and that they were shipping just insane amounts of steel and other aluminum and other stuff to NASA. And when he tried, and there were cost overruns and other things, and when he tried to go to management and say, hey, what is all this stuff? This isn't on the books. They told him to be quiet. And eventually they got rid of him.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so,
yeah, they didn't want it leaked out.
I would suggest to you that a lot of the UFOs that we see they're UFOs by virtue of the fact that they're in the air, they're unidentifiable, and they're flying, and they're objects, so they're UFOs, right? But I would argue to you that a lot of them, especially the larger ones, are actually ours, and they're ferrying stuff up to the moon or Mars or wherever they want to go. And they have bases there. I mean, I call it the facility, but I found a structure built into the side of a canyon on Mars, and I have a joke that I play on people that I get somebody who's particularly unbelieving of this idea, and I say, okay, let me test you. And so I show them this photo, and I say, what is that? They go, oh, that's a multi-million-dollar home in Malibu, maybe on fire now. But I go, no, that's actually built into the side of a cliff on Mars, and it looks like a multi-million-dollar house from Malibu. It's smooth, it's angular. There's a perfectly circular dome on top. I mean, it looks. This is not something where you look at it and you go, "Oh no, it was built there 4 million years ago and it has wind erosion." And no. This thing looks like a shiny, brand new house.
That is interesting.
Or more like a concrete bunker, but you get the idea. And
Now,
it's perched on the side of a cliff.
Now, do you think that they're thinking about putting men on Mars, and then after the Earth changes and maybe Earth settles down, come back and repopulate the Earth?
Yeah. I think that basically the way that it comes down is that, you hear the Agenda 21 Georgia Guidestones thing, where it's like 500 million people. Well, I think that 500 million people actually equates to the kind of the population of, say, North America or Europe, right? That they believe that between Asia, North America, and Europe, that they can support 500 million people in a post-apocalyptic environment. And I think that the reason you see those Chinese ghost cities in Africa is that I suspect that they're going to turn Africa, the continent of Africa, into a factory.
That's quite
because
possible.
if you look around at the population, right? We have all these warning signs. Oh, overpopulation, the population bomb. We're all going to die. We're going to run out of food. Did you know that in the entire world that the population is decreasing exponentially? That we're actually losing population in all of Europe, Russia, Asia, in the Americas, both North and South. Our population is going down. But in the continent of Africa, if you take the whole continent, not any particular country, the population there is skyrocketing. A lot of the population doom and gloom, these numbers that we get are coming out of the subcontinent of India, right, and of Asia, or of Africa, the continent of Africa. So that's every single country in Africa. If you put them all together, the population is dramatically increasing. It's like 6 times higher than it is in America or anywhere in Europe or Russia.
Wow.
That's weird.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what on the Earth, what if something happened? Have you researched where maybe some safe spots might possibly be? I mean, you could be totally wrong, but have you looked into places that, that might survive?
Sure. I mean, there are a number of them, and you can buy books that tell you all about it. We spent the better part of 40 years planning for a nuclear apocalypse that never came. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. A lot of the states that border the northern, border Canada are going to end up being covered in ice. I mean, you can kind of draw some conclusions about it.
Well, that's getting really scary there. It's something too. When I think about, like, China is wanting to send up a whole bunch of artificial moons to brighten up the night, and I don't understand why they're doing that. And now they have, in the news today with fusion, they I guess they mastered that, or actually was able to do it. That is scary too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weird, kooky things going on, and I think we need to look at what's going on piece by piece and just start putting it together.
Well, also Peter Davenport was on Michael W. Hall's show. It's my Saturday host last week, and for an hour, and he was talking. I talked to him for a few minutes too, by the way, and he was talking about all the reports as more than ever getting UFO reports, just from very accountable people, and it seems to be more and more of them lately.
There are. And I think that's awareness. I think a lot of that is awareness. I think there's not quite the negativity associated with it that there used to be. But I think it's also there's a lot more going on. I believe for a long time that whatever they're doing, whatever we're doing up in Mars, it's accelerating.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they're talking, about in the next few years getting, people on Mars. At this point, though, wouldn't it be a one-way ticket, though?
Conventionally, yes. I mean, right now, yeah. Publicly, sure. It would be a one-way trip.
Yeah.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah, and now if they have something other than rocket power, then it wouldn't be, would it?
Yeah. Well, you're going to use conventionally. We're not talking about the secret space program or any of that stuff. Conventionally, you would have to, in order to survive there for any length of time, you'd have to fill that vehicle up with so much stuff that you're going to burn all your fuel just trying to get out there.
Oh,
and so you're not going to have enough fuel to come back.
Well, that's what tells me that there has to be other things, transporting stuff to Mars, yeah, so that is capable of transporting it. Let's face it, the rocket technology hasn't really advanced that much.
I mean, it has, but it hasn't. They're making the fuel more efficient and they're making it more stable, and where you've seen a lot more rocket platforms like SpaceX that are reusable, but at the same time, to undertake a mission of that magnitude to try to get out there using a rocket motor, yeah, it's a one-way trip because you're going to have to fill it with all kinds of stuff. I mean, how are you going to generate oxygen? Well, you're going to need some sort of catalyzer. Well, you're going to have to carry that. What are you going to eat for a while before you can build greenhouses, and see if you can even build greenhouses? Well, you're going to have to carry a whole ton of food. What are you going to drink? Well, you can recycle, human waste to a point, but, it's only going to support so many people for so long. I mean, they do that in submarines,
Oh, yeah.
but at the same time, how are you going to power it?
That's the other issue, too. Yeah. I don't know. That tells me, I'm just wondering if maybe eventually they'll come out and say, like Steve Bassett says, he was hoping it would happen this coming year, where they kind of opened up about, UFOs and what's going on. But because of all the political stuff he said in Washington, D.C., he said, it's maybe another year or two out.
I've always had a problem with the disclosure movement. Let's say for the sake of argument, because I'm a 90-10 kind of guy. I follow the Hynek-Vallée thing where it's like 90% of what we see is misidentifications or it's human derived, and 10 or 20%, are alien maybe. But I've never believed that the disclosure will ever happen. Not because they want to. If they were ever, they being the countries of the world, not just the U.S., if they, whoever they are, ever disclosed it, I think it would be because something happened that they can't cover up or deny. Yeah. But this idea that, no, they're preparing the population and one day they're going to come trucking out and everybody's going to see that these things are real and yada, 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 I don't buy it. Because in order to do that, right, they would have to admit to so many things that they've done to try to cover it up that it would be a huge nightmare of a political scandal. I just don't think that disclosure, as the disclosure advocates want, will ever happen. And there's actually a very famous monologue, I guess you'd call it, that John Lear did with Art Bell many, many, many years ago. And Art Bell comes on and he's talking to Lear and he says, what do you think about disclosure? And Lear says, well, do you have 15 minutes? And Bell goes, sure.